Hello everybody, I'm Richard Gon of Back to Live podcast version. So this time, what I'd like to talk about is how to speak English without taking high score in IELTS. I'm going to tell you again. So the title is How to Speak English Without Taking High Score in IELTS. So most people, I think most people or all people have some pictures or images like so. When taking IELTS or when taking the test of IELTS, so it's necessary to speak out English fluently or natively, actually, if possible. So, but actually, so I don't think that is enough. So maybe most of you can understand what I'm saying, because although I don't understand nor I don't speak English natively, but that is because what I'm talking about, of course, what I'm talking about is a meaningless stuff, you know. So in the case of most people, or in case, so there are quite many people who wants to get or take higher scores in IELTS. So so speaking when taking IELTS, and which is quite expensive for one test. But actually, so when taking IELTS, so most people wants to get higher scores for their tests. So of course, it's easy for even native speakers just to speak. It's easy for native speakers just to speak English fluently and natively. But actually, so thinking about the fact that IELTS is a type of test. So it's necessary to focus on questions and answers, which means, so if you get some questions, you have to answer something, matching making the requirements posed as questions, which is a key to take higher scores in IELTS, which means, so if you do not, for example, so if you do not want to take high scores when taking IELTS, and with speaking English fluently and natively, so to get lower scores, along with speaking out English fluently, what you have to do is to answer your own answers, which do not fulfill nor match the questions, which means, for example, so I don't think that such a question comes out. So I have taken IELTS, but so I don't tell you my own scores. But actually, because I took that test years before. So maybe that I don't think that qualification I got in that IELTS is usable. Anyway, so if you get some, for example, if you get some question like what is this, and point, and please imagine a situation that some interviewer or somebody of some staff of IELTS points out an apple, and that he or she says what is it to you. So in such a situation, so you have to answer that is an apple. So you don't have to add anything to that question. So what is this pointing out apple? So the answers was people who have to answer have to say that is an apple or it's an apple, and the color is red or green or stuff like that. If you want to add something, anyway, so in such a situation, so that, of course, if somebody asks you, so if somebody asks you what is this in the situation of the test, in the situation of the test of IELTS, so, and if you take that test, so and the question was what is this, and the staff was the member of staff of IELTS point out an apple, anything is fine. For example, that if he or she points out an apple, so the answer is, well, you have to, well, you can say that it's an apple, and so question and or a series of questions and answers is that simple. But actually, so to get lower scores, speaking out English fluently and natively. So what you have to do is, for example, if the examiner, or if the member of IELTS post or says question like, what is this, pointing at Apple. So what you have to say is, for example, it's a computer, or it's a, so I don't know what you mean. So anyway, so there's a written stuff whose shape is a circle, but you know, that can be a replica, or that can be a, for example, plastic model for children. You know, it's fine to tell you. It's fine to tell you. It's fine to tell that it's it's not fine to tell you such a thing, but it's, you know, because you are answers in that hypothetical or imaginary situation. But so in such a case, what you have to say is stuff like that, for to you know, not to miss the point of the question, or to you know, to stray from the point or the requirements of the question. So of course it's necessary to answer like it's an apple, but actually, so you don't have to, you can't say that stuff. If you want to get lower scores when taking IELTS, and along with speaking out English natively or fluently. So anyway, in this part, what I want you to understand, or what I'd like you to understand, is that, so if you want to get high score in IELTS, you should be concerned about the communications when working. So I think this is the case to every communication, but you know, so if you get some questions, or if somebody asks you some questions, so what you have to do is, so what it's supposed to do is to answer. What it's supposed to do is to tell the person something matching or fulfilling the questions, which is how communications should go. Which means, so of course, you know, so of course the title says how to speak English without taking high scores in IELTS. So you know, to start with, you know, so if you get some questions with that, and you say nothing, but I don't think that is interesting, because you know, so there's no interesting point, and you know, so of course, you know, you can take a lower score if you do not say anything. If you when you get some questions, that is so the point of this episode is that, so you know, so to get the lower score speaking, to get the lower score simultaneously speaking English, or along with speaking English, so it's necessary. So the situation requires you are speaking something in the form of English language, and so if you answer something to the questions, or to the question, or to the person who extracted, or who posed, or who asked some questions. So you know, if you want to get lower scores, so of course, you know, you have to intentionally stray from the points or the requirements of the questions. So, but actually, this is an episode, which is why I'd like to tell you how to take higher scores. So if you want to get high scores in IELTS, you should be concerned about the communications when working. So when working, when you get some questions, you answer stuff matching or fulfilling the requirements of the questions, which is what you do as always. Which means, so if you imagine such a situation, or if you create some pictures in your mind, drawing the situations of workplaces, for example, or in the case of the pandemic of coronavirus or COVID-19. So please imagine working situations, like for example, you get some questions from your bosses, and you answer something meeting the requirements or the questions to the questions came out coming out from your bosses, for example. So which is, so such a situation is what you should imagine when taking IELTS. So that's all. So coming back to the original title of this episode. So, how to speak English without taking high score in IELTS. The answer is, of course, so you have to answer something. You have to answer something which never meets the requirements or the questions coming out or posted by the people working for IELTS, and who answered, who ask you those questions, or who asks you those questions, or that question. For example, what is this? Pointing out Apple. So, and if you want to take lower score, so what you have to do is that is a plastic model of red circles, stuff like that. Such a thing is what you have to say. So, and the conclusion is, if you want to get high score in IELTS, you should be concerned about the communications when working. So please imagine the business situations when taking IELTS, which is what I'd like you to know, or which is what I recommend you are doing. So at last, I said many things related to such an interview. But so if you could not understand my explanation well, or if you can't understand English my explanation well, please imagine interviewer situation, or examiner situation, or questioner answer situation in which, so ask us or questioners and interviewers and examiners pose or ask you some questions in IELTS, and you are in such a case, you are an answerer or an interviewee or an examinee who has to tell the examiners some answers to those questions posed by or coming from questioners. Please imagine which is the situation I'd like you to imagine. And that's it. Thank you very much for your listening. See you.